The Camacho Ada campaign asks all our supporters to vote on the Republican side of the ballot on Election Day. From our friends Felix Camacho and Tony Ada for governor and lieutenant governor, Jim Moylan for delegate to the U.S. Congress, and our 15 candidates for the Guam legislature. Vote Republican from the top to the bottom. It all begins with you. You have to get involved with the process. That's how elections are won.
I'm Felix Camacho.
And I'm Tony Ada.
And we approve this message.
Half a day. I moved to Guam 23 years ago, living paycheck to paycheck just to make ends meet. Through hard work, I was able to build small businesses, not just to sustain my family, but also to provide job opportunities for our island. But I want more for Guahan. I will use my experience to strengthen our economy by promoting affordable housing, food sustainability, and foster growth for all businesses. Together we can make Guahan stronger from within and set new standards for our island. I'm Bishop Mendiola, and I approve this message.
Good evening and welcome to Agana. I'm Troy Torres, and I want to thank you for joining me this evening as I tell you, or as I bring you along, a personal story that has, of course, implications for powerhouses in this community and holding people accountable for the things that they have done and the things that some people refuse to admit to doing. And so when we come back, I will bring you on this story, on this journey. And I hope that we can all be better for it. Stick with us after this commercial break. I'll tell you my story.
Half a day. My name is Marianne Mana Silva Tyron, and I'm running for a seat in the 37th Guam Legislature. You might remember me from my media days, as I spent over 20 years covering news here on Guam. More recently, I served as a senator in the 31st Guam Legislature and as the deputy administrator of the Guam Economic Development Authority. I've always been an advocate for businesses and for building a strong economy for our island, and over the years have worked to create new laws that help to increase business activity and develop new industries on Guam. I've also created legislation that helped to improve access to government services. If elected to serve again, I will continue to focus on improving the economy because I believe that building a strong economy will allow us to better address critical needs in public safety, healthcare, and education. This general election, I ask that you give me one of your votes. I'm Marianne Mana Silva Tyron, and I'm number 12 on the Republican side of the ballot.
Half a day. I'm Tom Fisher. Here's the harsh reality. A trip to the grocery store for the basics, eggs, bag of rice, butter, can of Spam, milk, costs almost $30, and that's just 5 items. The cost of living continues to grow, but the money doesn't. We need to roll back the business privilege tax to reduce Guam's cost of living, and I will make that happen.
Vote Thomas Fisher for senator. If you want different, vote different.
I'm Tom Fisher, and I approve this message.
Half a day. My name is Jeanette Guzman Chrysostom, and I'm voting for Joe S. San Agustin.
Half a day. I'm Ryan Babalta, and I'm voting for Joe S. San Agustin.
Mabuhay! Ako po si Micaela Silorio at boboto ko si Joe S. San Agustin.
Half a day. My name is Diane Kenko Garrido, and I'm voting for Joe.
Half a day. My name is Joel Cabana. I humbly ask my friends and families to please join me in voting Joe Shimizu San Agustin.
I'm Senator Joe Shimizu San Agustin, and I approve this message.
Half a day, dear people of Guam. My name is Peter Santos, and I am running as a write-in candidate for the Attorney General of Guam. For many reasons, crime, especially violent crime, is at an all-time high on Guam. This crisis is mostly due to a lack of competent prosecution. There are just 2 prosecutors who are qualified to handle serious cases. This dire situation was totally avoidable, but Levin Camacho is seriously out of touch with reality. Just like under Douglas Moylan, highly qualified prosecutors fled from Levin. Guam doesn't need to choose the lesser of 2 evils between Levin and Doug this election. I have 30 years of public service as a GPD officer, Army JAG, prosecutor, magistrate, and defense attorney. I am the right man to fix what Levin and Doug has broken. Please write in Peter Santos for Attorney General of Guam in this election. Thank you, si Diyos maasi, maraming salamat, and kiliso.
Terong ani kami resong mar me reilumar ngang ursemiam lino meta olopai. Imusan tangar malulu ngani kami masal ngani kami babu fitie le iti Selena Roberto Babauta bobotolong boye nice Congress nomor nyan balat nge ruo automatically nomor nyan balat nge ruo melan November walu lan maram musik kemutingan ni au sigi uri ululu nyan ngang melan House of Representative eseb mesah ehibura ehiwana charmalian ye wikita ngairala mikagat dengan egis meas government ebalsenir me eno precinct 2 ebalam benar alnger sakna we esabior preferno melan fanu kafanwas wan te hi lokametaka ekera boba mala preferno melan nas government Oyas hero balan fanu kafanwas bali ye hero ato taboye yang musenegi me ba to taboye busiu ato lenge Selena Roberto Babauta nomor ruo lanyan balat bisi ato lenge webono boye as senator lan election sikem matengene lan November Giliso ngani kami resa omar merelumar. Giliso.
For 29 years, I've wondered how the multiple rapes I endured as a St. Anthony School student by a teacher affected me. I was a drug user for most of those 3 decades. Naturally, I wondered whether my addiction had anything to do with the rapes. It's a question I've asked myself since I stared down the tube of a glass pipe for the first time when I was 19 years old. That was 23 years and many therapy sessions ago, and only 2 weeks ago did the answer come to me. It's taken me several days to consider whether I would tell you this story. It is deeply personal and reveals to you the final demons, secrets my mind has withheld from me for so long that will always dwell in me. The reason I'm sharing this is that I'm not the only one. I'm among a sea of drug addicts and survivors of sexual assault in our islands. I'm also among the hundreds of victims of the Archdiocese of Agana's cover-up of child rape. A recent statement by the Archdiocese tipped my decision to talk about this, and so here are my demons. I've spoken extensively about my drug use, and I've told you the story of my rape by a former St. Anthony School teacher and vice principal named Ray Kaluag, from 1993 to 1994. What I've never been able to tell you is how the two are related. That's because I could never make the connection until 2 weeks ago. The mind is extraordinary like that. Our biology is a thing of wonder. Whenever something traumatic like a gunshot wound happens, our central nervous system orchestrates to protect the brain and the heart first. And if it must, it will sacrifice some lesser organ like the skin or the kidney. The same thing happens when we are psychologically traumatized. The brain protects itself. If you've ever been sexually assaulted for a prolonged period or even the victim of repeated domestic violence, you'll understand what I have to say next. Your mind becomes your prison. It is the worst part of the experience. And if this happens before your brain is fully developed in adulthood, things can go very wrong, and for a long time, you won't even realize what it is or how it all connects. It took me nearly 30 years to come out of the prison my mind created. It's been nearly 30 years since Ray Kaluag brought me, a 13-year-old boy at the time, to his Tumon condo to rape me for the first time. It would be the first 20 to 30 times I'd ever have sex. Before it happened the first time, I was not a sexual person at all. When it was done, I never thought to consider how that trauma distorted my view of sex and the demons that could be awakened if those distortions became uninhibited. For those of you familiar with meth use, you understand that the drug causes different reactions among users. For most meth users, the drug simply helps them to focus. Then there are the minority of meth users who have become the banner children of the drug. These are the people who undergo a dramatic transformation in character and behavior. They go from nice people to people who will steal and hurt loved ones. And finally, there are those of us who loved the drug because the second we inject it, our sexual inhibitions melt. For those of us whose experience of sex was inhibited and distorted by childhood rape, what ensues is an absolute promiscuity and depravity we never would engage in otherwise. I belong to that category, the addict who depended on ice to unlock a sexual appetite discolored by the trauma of the rapes as a child. I was depraved. Thankfully, my depravity never led me to desire children. Even still, my promiscuity and appetite for orgies and pornography consumed me throughout my decades of drug abuse. I've been sober for a while now. I've had nearly no sexual appetite, and that made me curious about myself. I thought something must be wrong with me, and there is. My worldview of sex was tainted by a child predator, inhibited and then inflamed for 2 decades of drug-induced uninhibited sexual monstrosity. My mind protected me from the trauma but kept me in the dark to the demons growing inside of me. A few days ago, Judge Francis Tidinklegate was signed off on a settlement agreement between the Archdiocese of Agana and nearly 300 victims of sexual abuse at the hands of priests and teachers within the Archdiocese. I'm one of the claimants. I'm also among some of the claimants who spoke up about the abuse at the time it was happening. In 1994, I told a teacher about the rapes, and that teacher told the principal of St. Anthony's School, Sister Kathleen Sarmiento. Sister Kathleen, in turn, called the police and my father. She also told the Archbishop at the time, Anthony Apparon. I filed a police complaint, which has since gone missing from the police department except for a case number locked in a file at the former Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, where I was examined shortly after the report. The Archdiocese knew since 1994 about the multiple rapes one of its own committed and did nothing to provide me, a student of theirs, with any kind of services. Worse, the Archdiocese did nothing to bring Ray Kaluag to justice. According to what police in the Office of the Attorney General told my father in 1994 and again in 1995 and again in 1996, they could not apprehend Ray Kaluag because he had fled to the Philippines. But that wasn't true, according to his former colleagues at St. Anthony. According to them, nuns within the Sisters of Mercy helped Kaluag to flee Guam to San Francisco, where they allegedly helped to house him while the statute of limitations ran out. Indeed, in 1997, 3 years after the final rape, Ray Kaluag was back on Guam. I know this because I saw him being escorted by then Notre Dame High School principal, Sister Regina Paulino, who had hired him to teach music at the school. I called her after school and told her my story. She threatened me that if I was lying, there would be consequences. She called me back about an hour later and told me, without any apology, that she spoke with the Chancery and the Archbishop and that they were aware of what happened. She said she decided not to hire Ray Kaluag. All of these people knew, people whom Catholics in Guam came to look to for spiritual guidance, and none of them extended even a whisper of apology, hope, or help. The only person they helped was Ray Kaluag. And it made sense in its own sick way. Kaluag's mother was the powerful director of the Chancery's Ministry on Families and Marriages, Dr. Josie Kaluag. And this is not to mention that mine wasn't the only scandal the Archdiocese was covering up. I wasn't the only boy molested by one of their own. Apparon himself stands accused of raping boys. And because the Archdiocese helped to cover up the scandal, Ray Kaluag was free to keep himself close to children. In December 2002, his mother walked into the office of then Governor-elect Felix Camacho, where I worked. She handed to his chief of staff at the time, Bernadette Stern, a letter asking that he intervene to get her son hired at Maria Ulloa Elementary School in Deredo. I told Bernadette about what he did to me, and she and Governor Camacho stopped the hiring from happening. Other school communities wouldn't be so lucky. For several years and before the headmaster knew about his past, Ray Kaluag worked with young boys at St. John's School in Upper Tumon. Once I found out, I called there to tell the headmaster what he did to me, and Kaluag soon fled to the Philippines, where he is a teacher in Marikina upon last report. I have been in a multi-decade failed effort to keep Reykjavik away from children. This is what St. Anthony's School and the Archdiocese of Agana should have done from the very beginning. Instead, they covered it up. And if you think the culture of cover-up has ended in the Archdiocese and at St. Anthony, think again. The school very recently covered up a sex scandal riddled in nepotism and the same disregard for victims the Archdiocese and the school have displayed for decades. When I look at that school, I see the rooms where I was raped and the corners I would hide to keep from his gaze and to ignore his calls. When I look at that school, I do not see a place that is safe for children. I see a house of horrors. I see the monster in my mind and the distortions that led to my addiction to sexual depravity, an addiction that for decades I thought was protecting my heart, but instead was rotting my mind. And it isn't just me, and it isn't just 300 men and women on Guam. There are thousands, possibly millions of us throughout the world who have been victims of the cover-ups of dioceses globally. After Judge Gatewood approved the settlement agreement, the Archdiocese, through its Vicar General, Father Romy Convocar, issued a statement that reads in part, quote, "On behalf of Archbishop Michael Burns and the entire Archdiocese, we apologize to the victim survivors for the severe harm that the former priests and church members did to them," end quote. There was something glaringly missing from that statement. Johnny Rosario wrote to Archdiocese spokesman Tony Diaz to ask whether the Archbishop and the Archdiocese also recognizes the severe harm the Archdiocese itself caused the abuse survivors by systematically covering up the abuse. This wasn't just Apron. It wasn't just St. Anthony's School. An entire system of priests, nuns, and lay people knew and looked the other way. They saw us suffering. They watched us grow up to be drug addicts. They saw some of us become sexual predators. They did nothing when some of us took our lives. They did nothing. They did nothing but cover it up. In his response to Johnny Rosario's inquiry, the Archdiocese still will not admit to the cover-up. Mr. Diaz stated in part, quote, "The Archdiocese apologizes to the men and women for the deep suffering inflicted upon them by members of the clergy and laity of the church. We ask forgiveness as well for the grave failure of the church then to protect them, acknowledge the abuse, and to respond accordingly," end quote. Nothing about the cover-up. Now comes a lawsuit by one of the victims that seeks to hold the Vatican accountable for allegedly participating in the cover-up. In my layman's view of things, I too wonder how it is possible the Vatican did not know what was going on. It was happening everywhere around the nation and in dioceses throughout the world. As I understand it from a trusted source, the Vatican has no administrative jurisdiction over the various dioceses outside the Diocese of Rome. But that doesn't mean the Vatican didn't know, that it didn't look the other way, the same way there was a systematic cover-up of the scandals throughout the Archdiocese of Agana. As for me, for 29 years, all of these people did nothing but look the other way, and that continues. For 29 years, I have been left by this Archdiocese to figure it out on my own, to battle demons I didn't realize I had, and now that I do realize what they are, my healing can truly begin. These are my demons, and I am exposing them to the light. I wish and pray the Archdiocese of Agana would do the same about itself. God bless you, and good night. I have different goals as I age. I want to be stronger and healthier, but it's got to fit my lifestyle. I can't spend all day in the gym and it can't be crowded. So here at CrossFit Kita, I have all these different options for fitness, and the people are really nice. The atmosphere is inviting. It's like family. GovGuam employees and retirees, sign up today for CrossFit Kita for free when you choose Take Care as your insurance carrier, and for 50% off if you choose Select Care. It's an investment you'll love.
Half a day. I'm Tom Fisher. Here's the harsh reality. A trip to the grocery store for the basics, eggs, bag of rice, butter, can of Spam, milk, costs almost $30, and that's just 5 items. The cost of living continues to grow, but the money doesn't. We need to roll back the business privilege tax to reduce Guam's cost of living, and I will make that happen.
Vote Thomas Fisher for senator. If you want different, vote different.
I'm Tom Fisher, and I approve this message.
I'm sick.
I'm tired.
I'm sick and tired of the infiltration of crystal meth in our families and in our neighborhoods, yet no drug task force to stem the flow of drugs is anywhere in sight.
We are disgusted in the increase in violent crimes and the decrease in police officers.
We are outraged at witnessing the absence of leadership and action until 6 months before the election.
We are sick of knowing
that if one of our loved ones gets very sick,
GMH may not be safe enough for them.
We have hope because we see the honesty of Governor Felix Camacho and Senator Tony Atta.
We have faith that they will take care of all the people, including the forgotten.
The struggling.
The in and the out.
In this election, we're voting for values.
For fairness.
For equality and equity.
For leadership that works from day one.
We are voting for Camacho Atta.
I'm Felix Camacho, and I approve this message.
Half a day, dear people of Guam. I am Peter Santos, and I am running as a write-in candidate for the Attorney General of Guam. It is absolutely no secret that on Guam, there is a violent crime crisis, and criminals are not being held responsible because there just aren't enough trained and qualified prosecutors. Prosecutors are highly specialized attorneys, and not just any attorney can be a good prosecutor. I really wish I could say that the crisis that we are experiencing at the prosecution division at the Attorney General's office under Lieven Camacho is unprecedented. But the sad reality and the harsh truth is that we've been down this road before with Douglas Moylan. Both Lieven and Doug have driven away good prosecutors. If you haven't been able to decide who's worse, Lieven or Doug, in this election, there is another option. Me, Peter Santos. Write in Peter Santos for Attorney General of Guam. I am the only candidate that has been a GPD officer, a prosecutor, a magistrate, and a defense attorney as well. I am the only candidate that has been in the trenches and rose through the ranks. I am the only candidate that is a common citizen without family interests in big business. I am the only candidate that can fix the crisis that we are in and provide a safer Guam. Write in Peter Santos for Attorney General. Thank you, si Diyos maasi, maraming salamat, and kilisong.